She vanished once, then twice, then a third time, and when police finally found her, the 15-year-old's body was hidden inside the trunk of a Tesla, owned by one of Houston's rising music stars. 3 knocks echoed through the empty garage. Police officers braced themselves as they pried open the trunk of a silver Tesla. What they found inside would stop the air cold: the decomposed body of a 15-year-old girl who had been missing for weeks. Her name was Celeste Rivas Hernandez. The discovery was shocking enough, but what truly set the case ablaze was whose car it was. The Tesla wasn't abandoned property, nor was it stolen. It belonged to a rising music star, known by millions as D4VD, the young Houston singer who had exploded onto the charts with Romantic Homicide. That night, officers stood frozen under the dim fluorescent lights of the garage. The odor of decay hung heavy in the air. Some whispered that this was no ordinary missing person case anymore. The trunk told a story of secrets, of a teenager whose vanishing act had finally ended in the most haunting of places, locked inside the luxury car of a celebrity. For Celeste's family, the nightmare had just reached its darkest turn. For the public, a storm of questions was about to begin. Before the headlines, before her name was whispered across news stations, Celeste Rivas Hernandez was simply a 15-year-old girl growing up in Houston. Neighbors remembered her as bright, with sharp eyes that always seemed older than her years. Teachers described her as restless, someone who struggled to sit still, someone whose mind often wandered far beyond the classroom. At home, things weren't easy. Her mother worked long hours, juggling bills and responsibilities, while Celeste wrestled with the turbulence of being a teenager in a world that often felt too big. Friends said she wanted freedom, independence, but also longed for connection she couldn't always find. There was a toughness to her, the kind born from having to grow up too quickly. Yet under that exterior was a vulnerability she rarely showed. Some classmates recalled how she'd disappear for a few days, then reappear with little explanation, shrugging off questions with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her social circle began to widen. She was often seen with older kids, teenagers who already lived by their own rules, skipping school, hanging out at strip mall parking lots, sneaking into parties. For her family, these changes were frightening. They had reported her missing more than once, terrified of what could happen to a girl her age in a city that swallowed the vulnerable whole. Still, Celeste wasn't someone easily boxed in. She loved music, sketching in her notebooks, scrolling through TikTok trends. To her cousins, she was funny and stubborn, always quick with a comeback. But those closest to her admitted something else. Celeste had secrets, and those secrets seemed to pull her further away from home each time she left. What no one realized then was that her pattern of vanishing wasn't just rebellion. It was the first thread of a much darker story, one that would eventually lead investigators to the trunk of a Tesla and to questions no one was ready to answer. By the time Celeste vanished for the last time, it wasn't the first cry for help. In fact, 2024 had already carried 3 separate missing person reports with her name on them. Each one painted a picture of a teenager slipping further away from the safety of home, like shadows that kept getting harder to trace. The first time, in early spring, she disappeared after school. Hours turned into days before officers found her staying with acquaintances far from her neighborhood. Her mother, frantic, had begged the police to do more, to treat her daughter's absence as more than just a runaway. The second time came in the heat of summer. Celeste vanished again, spotted last at a gas station with a group of older teens. That time, she was discovered in another part of the city, confused, tired, but alive. The official report described her as voluntarily absent, but to her family, the word voluntary felt hollow. The third incident, just weeks before her death, carried a darker weight. Witnesses recalled seeing her near an apartment complex known for drugs and gang activity. She was found 2 days later, reluctant to explain where she had been or who she had been with. It was as if her silences carried more truth than her words ever could. Each disappearance left a mark. Her mother grew more desperate, her younger siblings more frightened. Friends whispered that Celeste was searching for something, maybe belonging, maybe love, maybe escape from a world that didn't understand her. But every time she returned, the gaps between home and the outside grew wider, like cracks spreading across fragile glass. Police noted the pattern, but couldn't stop it. Celeste wasn't the kind of girl who stayed in one place for long, and the city of Houston had a way of swallowing girls like her into its endless sprawl. And so, when September arrived and she vanished yet again, many wondered if this was simply another episode, one she would survive like the others. No one could have guessed that this time there would be no safe return. It was a humid September night in Houston when Celeste Rivas Hernandez was seen for the very last time. The evening began like so many others. A group of teenagers gathered outside a bustling strip mall, neon signs buzzing above their heads, the sound of cars drifting in and out of the parking lot. Surveillance footage later reviewed by investigators showed Celeste among them. She was dressed casually, dark jeans, a loose hoodie, and carried the restless energy that seemed to follow her everywhere. At 9:37 p.m., cameras caught her leaving the shopping center with several older teens. They walked together toward the far end of the lot, where the cameras stopped recording. After that, she simply vanished. Her mother noticed the silence first. Calls went unanswered. Texts remained unread. By midnight, panic set in. By dawn, another missing person report was filed. Only this time, something felt different. Celeste had disappeared before, but the dread that gripped her family now was heavier, sharper, as if they knew the outcome would not be the same. Witnesses told police they saw her climb into a vehicle that night. Some said it was a dark sedan. Others weren't sure. No license plate was ever confirmed. In a city of millions, the trail dissolved into nothing. For days, friends posted her photo on Instagram, pleading for tips. Flyers were taped to gas pumps, laundromats, and bus stops. The hashtag #FindCeleste spread, drawing attention far beyond Houston. But behind every post, there was a growing fear. This disappearance was not like the others. This one carried the silence of finality. And then, the lead stopped. No sightings, no calls, no hope. Until, weeks later, a Tesla left sitting in a garage would give police the answer no one was ready to face. It was the smell that gave it away. Neighbors near a private garage in Houston reported a foul odor, one that grew stronger with every passing day. At first, some thought it was a dead animal, something trapped in the walls. But when police finally arrived, their attention turned to a silver Tesla parked quietly in the corner. The vehicle was registered to a name that instantly raised eyebrows. David Burke, better known as D4VD, the Houston-born singer who had exploded onto the charts with his haunting single, Romantic Homicide. He was a rising star, his music streaming in the millions, his face recognized worldwide. And now, his car was the center of a crime scene. Officers approached cautiously. The Tesla had been sitting unused for weeks. Its exterior looked ordinary, even pristine, but the closer they got, the stronger the odor became. A detective later admitted in a press conference that the moment he opened the trunk was something he would never forget. Inside, curled into the confined space, was the body of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. The girl whose disappearance had gripped her family, whose face had been plastered across social media, whose name had echoed in prayers. She was found at last, but not in the way anyone had hoped. The scene was grim. Her body showed advanced decomposition, suggesting she had been there for some time. The garage was sealed off, officers whispering among themselves as reporters began to gather outside. One detail stood out. There was no sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no evidence of a struggle within the car. It was as though she had been placed there deliberately and left behind. For investigators, the questions multiplied. Why was she in the trunk of this particular car? How long had she been there? And what, if anything, did the young celebrity connected to the vehicle know? That night, under flashing red and blue lights, the garage became more than a crime scene. It became the start of a storm that would ripple through music, media, and the broken heart of a city trying to understand how a 15-year-old girl ended up lifeless in the trunk of fame. Within hours of the discovery, the story broke across every major outlet. Headlines screamed the same chilling line. Missing Houston teen found dead in trunk of singer D4VD's Tesla. News vans swarmed the neighborhood. Helicopters hovered overhead. Reporters shoved microphones toward anyone who might have known Celeste, their voices urgent, their words heavy with suggestion. On local broadcasts, anchors spoke with measured tones. But the underlying question was unavoidable. How could the body of a missing 15-year-old end up inside the car of a rising music star? The internet moved even faster. Twitter feeds erupted with speculation. TikTokers created minute-long breakdowns, overlaying photos of Celeste with clips of D4VD's music videos. Reddit threads dissected every detail of the case, connecting dots that may or may not have been there. Some called it coincidence. Others whispered darker possibilities, hidden relationships, industry secrets, or something far more sinister. In Houston, the atmosphere was electric with fear and anger. Parents clutched their children tighter. Students at Celeste's school lit candles outside the campus gates, leaving handwritten notes that read, "We love you, Celeste, and justice for her." But alongside the grief was suspicion. Was this simply the tragic end of a runaway teenager's journey? Or was there more to the story, something powerful enough to drag a celebrity into its shadows? Police gave few answers. They confirmed the body belonged to Celeste and that the Tesla was registered to D4VD. But beyond that, they urged patience. "The investigation is ongoing," one spokesperson repeated, refusing to confirm or deny whether the singer himself was considered a suspect. The silence only fed the fire. To the public, it felt like the beginning of a cover-up, or perhaps the unraveling of something even bigger. And at the center of it all was a haunting detail that would soon take the internet by storm. A small tattoo, no bigger than a whisper. As investigators combed through the evidence, a single image leaked online that set the internet ablaze. A photograph of Celeste, taken months before her death, showing a small tattoo inked on her right index finger. The word was simple, delicate, shh, etched across the skin just below her knuckle. Within hours, fans noticed something that transformed the case from tragedy to conspiracy. The same tattoo, in nearly the same spot, was visible on the hand of D4VD. In music videos, concert photos, even candid shots, the singer was seen flashing the very same ink, shh, carved onto his finger. Coincidence or connection? Reddit threads exploded. TikTok videos racked up millions of views, showing side-by-side comparisons of Celeste's hand and D4VD's. Some claimed it was proof of a secret relationship. Others argued it was a common design, nothing more than bad timing. But the imagery was too powerful to ignore. A missing girl, a celebrity, and a tattoo that seemed to whisper a message from the grave. Theories spread like wildfire. Was Celeste a fan who mirrored her idol's ink? Or had the tattoo marked something deeper, an unspoken bond between the teenager and the star whose car would one day hold her body? Police refused to comment on the tattoos, dismissing them as irrelevant to the official investigation. But to the public, silence only confirmed suspicion. Screenshots, hashtags, and video breakdowns flooded every corner of the internet. The word shh was no longer just a tattoo. It had become the symbol of a mystery that was growing darker by the hour. And while the world obsessed over ink and images, Celeste's family mourned in silence, grappling with grief no theory could explain. When the news broke, the Rivas Hernandez family didn't hear it from television or social media. They heard it from the police, standing in their small Houston apartment, voices heavy with apology. For Celeste's mother, the words shattered the air. Her daughter, missing for weeks, had been found dead in the trunk of a car. Neighbors recalled hearing her scream, the kind of scream that comes from the bottom of the soul, raw and uncontainable. It sounded like something breaking, one neighbor said later. Like her whole life cracked in that moment. Celeste's mother spoke briefly to reporters days later, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. "My daughter called out for help so many times," she said, voice trembling. "We went to the police, we filed reports, but no one listened until it was too late." Her words struck a chord across Houston. Parents saw themselves in her desperation, wondering if their own children might be just as vulnerable, just as overlooked. The grief was unbearable, but underneath it pulsed a sharp current of anger. Celeste's cousins described her as fiercely independent, but still just a girl who wanted love and belonging. They remembered her laughter at family gatherings, the way she always played music too loud in her earbuds, the sketches she doodled on scraps of paper. To them, she was not a headline. She was family. The family began pressing for answers. Why had previous disappearances been dismissed as voluntary runaways? Why had no one connected the dots sooner? And how could their 15-year-old end up in the trunk of a celebrity's Tesla without anyone noticing for weeks? At the makeshift memorial outside their apartment, candles flickered alongside hand-painted posters of Celeste's smiling face. Strangers stopped to pray, some leaving flowers, others kneeling silently. The grief was spreading beyond one family. It was becoming a city's grief, a city's demand for justice. But justice was still far away, and the spotlight was about to swing back onto the man whose car held the secret no one could ignore. The pressure on David Burke, better known by his stage name D4VD, was immediate and relentless. His face, once splashed across billboards and Spotify playlists, was now plastered on news broadcasts, next to the words, "Body found in singer's Tesla." For days, he remained silent. His social media accounts frozen. But as the speculation grew unbearable, he finally issued a statement through his attorney. In carefully chosen words, he admitted what no one could deny. The Tesla was his. But beyond that, he claimed complete ignorance. "I had no knowledge of Celeste's presence in my vehicle," the statement read. "The car had been parked and unused for weeks. I am cooperating fully with law enforcement to uncover the truth." To some, it was enough. A young artist caught in an unimaginable tragedy, blindsided like everyone else. To others, it was a weak attempt to distance himself from a girl whose death demanded answers. When reporters finally caught him outside a recording studio, his face was pale, his voice strained. He repeated the same message: that he didn't know Celeste personally, that he had nothing to do with her disappearance, that the investigation would prove his innocence. Yet his trembling hands and downcast eyes only fueled the doubt. Fans who once screamed his lyrics at concerts now flooded comment sections with questions. Why her body in your car? What's the truth? Some unfollowed him in disgust, while others defended him fiercely, insisting he was being set up. The tattoo detail only made things worse. Photos of his finger inked with "shh" circulated side by side with Celeste's, and though his team dismissed it as coincidence, the image spoke louder than his denials. In the court of public opinion, silence and coincidence rarely cleared anyone's name. And while D4VD pleaded innocence, the world was already writing its own verdict. If the official investigation was slow, the internet was not. Within days of Celeste's body being found, thousands of theories flooded social media, each more sensational than the last. On TikTok, creators stitched together clips of Celeste with snippets of D4VD's music, whispering about hidden meanings in his lyrics. A popular video claimed his hit song, "Romantic Homicide," wasn't just art. It was a confession in plain sight. The video racked up millions of views overnight. Reddit forums became digital crime scenes. Users pored over police reports, dissected old interviews, and even mapped Celeste's last known movements onto Google Street View. Some insisted she had been in a secret relationship with the singer. Others speculated about a darker world, industry parties, exploitation, even human trafficking. None of it was proven, but in the frenzy of clicks and comments, fact and rumor blurred into one. Twitter hashtags told the story of a divided public. Justice for Celeste trended alongside -free D4VVD. Some demanded his arrest immediately. Others argued he was a victim of circumstance, framed by forces beyond his control. Memes, theories, and outrage swirled together until it became impossible to separate truth from noise. For Celeste's grieving family, the online storm was unbearable. They begged the public to focus on the real victim, their daughter, and not on unproven conspiracies. But once the digital wildfire started, there was no stopping it. The police, meanwhile, watched carefully. Every rumor, every post, every new lead became a potential thread to pull. And though no evidence yet tied the singer directly to Celeste's death, the question was unavoidable. If not him, then who? Behind the flashing headlines and viral hashtags, the Houston Police Department worked methodically, piecing together the fragments of Celeste's final days. Detectives retraced her steps from the shopping center where she was last seen. They pulled hours of grainy surveillance footage, interviewed friends, and subpoenaed phone records, but every lead seemed to fray into dead ends. The Tesla itself became the centerpiece of the investigation. Forensic teams swept every inch of the vehicle, searching for fingerprints, fibers, or DNA that could tell them how Celeste ended up inside. Yet the results were maddeningly inconclusive. The trunk carried her remains, but no clear signs of struggle, no fingerprints beyond those expected, no forced entry. It was as if she had simply lain down inside and never gotten up again. Investigators pressed D4VD for details. Where had he been during the weeks the Tesla sat unused? Who had access to his garage? His answers, given through his attorney, were carefully measured, leaving more questions than clarity. Behind the scenes, detectives also looked into Celeste's known social circles, the older teens she was last seen with, the risky environments she had wandered into before. They interviewed witnesses from gas stations, apartment complexes, even convenience stores. Each account painted the same troubling picture: a vulnerable girl drifting in and out of dangerous company. Still, the public grew restless. At vigils, mourners demanded justice. On social media, users accused the police of protecting the rich and famous. The department held press conferences, insisting that the case was active, that no stone was being left unturned. But weeks passed with no arrests, no charges, and no definitive answers. For the city of Houston, the silence felt suffocating. And for Celeste's family, it was torture, watching the world debate theories while the truth about their daughter's final moments remained locked in shadows. In the end, Celeste Rivas Hernandez became more than a name on a missing person flyer. She became a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be for the young, the vulnerable, the unseen. Her story lingered long after the cameras left the garage, after the headlines faded into newer scandals. A 15-year-old girl, missing again and again, until finally her journey ended in silence, sealed in the trunk of a silver Tesla. To this day, the unanswered questions weigh heavily. Was Celeste the victim of coincidence, her death tied to circumstances beyond her control? Or was there a deeper connection, something hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be uncovered? For her family, grief lives alongside anger. For her city, the case is an open wound. And for the rest of us, the image remains impossible to forget. A teenager lost in the sprawl of Houston, discovered only when it was far too late. The truth, perhaps, is still out there, buried beneath secrets, lies, and the whispers of a world that doesn't always protect its children. Until it is found, Celeste's story remains unfinished. And that's why we share it here, because every name deserves to be remembered. Every story deserves to be told. If this story gripped you the way it gripped us, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Silent Traces so you won't miss the next mystery waiting to be uncovered.